On March 14, 2024, over a dozen African countries experienced internet outages due to damage to submarine fiber optic cables along the West African coastline. The impact was severe, with massive disruptions to financial services. Among the worst affected were Ghana, Liberia, Benin and Cote d'Ivoire, which recorded internet connectivity of 25%, 17%, 14% and 4% respectively. Service providers affected include the West African Cable System and African Coast to Europe, which experienced falls, and SAT3 and MIN1, which experienced downtimes. In this interview, key industry stakeholders bear their minds on the real issues and lessons from the outage that affected telecom and financial services, among others.
Definitely, we should learn some lessons not to over-rely on a single infrastructure. There are multiple facilities that we should be able to rely on. So in case of failure, for instance, what happened? Some countries are yet to recover now, but within 24 hours, Nigeria has recovered because we have alternative, we have options. So it's really important for us not to over-rely on just a single point of access, because if it fails, that means everybody will be down. So we need to really, in the area of government policy, what can we do to enhance that? We deepen this. And for the private sector organization, the investors, there are opportunities for them to invest in Nigeria because the population is huge. The demand for these facilities are huge in this country. So we know all of us, we have roles to play, government, private sector, even the civil society group, media, to create awareness on what we need to do. So it's really important that we learn our lessons and know how to bring more investors to be able to support the country in the area of digital technologies.
What we have learned is that we actually require redundancies, and they are existing. So we need to utilize them more. That's what we have learned. And also, there are things you can do to ensure that these redundancies are actively utilized. So you don't need to renegotiate something that if you have planned for before. So if every network, for example, is mandated to have a redundancy link, it should have been easier and seamless. But still, 24 hours recovery is still a good one.
We need to spend more on redundancies. Redundancies are infrastructure that must be kept alive, even though they're not required. So we need to spend a bit more on redundancy. And I think importantly, we need to underscore a need to protect our critical infrastructure. Telecoms, from what we have seen, remains one of the most critical socio-economic infrastructure. And what I would say is that we now need to have deliberate policy towards infrastructure protection. And that goes to, again, to underscore the need for critical national infrastructure. Now, somebody will argue that happened out of the shores of the country. But you know, that's one incident that has rarely happened. But we've had issues of fiber cuts across the country on the terrestrial network many times over and over again because of the vulnerability. As I said in my intervention, if that had happened in the shores of Nigeria, it would be said that operators haven't done enough to protect the infrastructure. But that happens outside the shore of Nigeria. You can see the international impact, not just across the local network, but across the international. So it goes to speak more to a need to protect the infrastructure that we have. That's one major lesson that we have to take from here. And redundancy. We must spend a bit more on providing redundancies, because you can never know when the main trunk will go down.
A lot. I think it just shows that we need to be prepared in Nigeria. We are talking today about shaping Nigeria's digital economy. So I'm trying to look at in the next 20 years where you have the whole of IoTs and everything internet, and this happens. You can imagine what will happen. You are in your home, everything is connected with the internet, your doors and everything cuts off. You know the kind of danger we are in. But good for us, in every disruption there are opportunities. So I think there are opportunities there, and everything that we've discussed here shows that we are ready, to go move further and take the market on concerning this.
The need for distributed resilience in infrastructure continues to build out. It also demonstrates the opportunities we have. We live in a global connectivity ecosystem. We live in a global digital ecosystem, but optimizing what we do locally around what we do internationally is key. But fundamentally, to be able to do that, we just need to make sure that we continue to build more resilience and interconnectivity in our digital infrastructure.
clear lesson we have to learn is really understanding diversification in terms of connectivity, understanding the capacity network that we currently have, and how we need to have multiple redundancy in the ecosystem that we have. We strongly believe that is required, and we believe the right individuals and right businesses would invest in ensuring that we have that redundancy that is definitely required in the country.
Immediately I got that news, the first thing that came to my mind was, I never imagined that we had so many offshore data. I think the key thing is we need to domicile data locally. That's the first thing, because prior to now, I thought banks, which are the primary go-to for data when it comes to banking, had their data in Nigeria. But I was surprised that even big banks had their data offshore. So it pays for us to have our data locally, because if it happened offshore, there was no reason for us to be totally connected for services that we patronize that is local. So if it were an international service, then it would have been understandable. So I think for me the key lesson is, let us domicile our data locally.
They need to have more redundancy. They need to localize infrastructure more, so that if you have more of your services running on the local level than international, if something like this happens, it wouldn't be affected. But even it could also happen in the local networks, right? So that is why there's a need for more robust redundant infrastructure.
It just goes to show the need for us to invest more in our infrastructure. We need to deploy more fiber, create more redundancy, so that when one fails, we have the next cable that will take over from the one that failed. So it's telling us that we need to invest more in infrastructure.
Very good question. See, outages happen globally. So it is not that it happened because we are in Africa. There is a undersea cable cut in Red Sea also, which is affecting Asia and Europe right now. So cable cuts keep on happening. But what can be done for future? Because if I say cable cuts will keep on happening because they happen due to the ship movement and all those things, what we need over here is the swap capacities. We have almost 6 to 7 cables coming into Nigeria, which is giving us a very good, big, huge capacity. But the irony is none of them are talking to each other. Majorly, they should have swap capacities. If one is getting affected, the other one is there to support them in such kind of a situation. So if all cable systems are made to, if they are not willing to, if they are made to by regulation, that they should have a swap between each other. I believe you understand swap. That is having a redundancy from each other. So if someone is getting affected, the swap capacity will still make it up and running, and the public and the country will not get affected by any of the outages.
This is a huge opportunity for others to be able to deliver their services they have been rendering in a small capacity. This is huge for them. So, and I believe that those that were actually met an unfortunate situation, I believe because of the kind of services they are rendering, they definitely are looking into how to actually revive their services. So it's a win-win situation. It might look like a loss, but trust me, as one network is down, another network is actually helping to actually stand in. So we are not completely out, but it's also an eye-opener. And I think that the space is so huge, it's humongous. So come in, take the opportunity, ride on existing infrastructure, build something for it, and identify your own space and render the services to the best of your capability, and also introduce a lot of solutions as well. I think it's beautiful and very creative industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, because actually my expertise is on transmission, and that area is an area which I'm very, very knowledgeable about. One of the things we learn about this is this: our entire country internet provision, like I would say over 90% of it depends on this subsea optical fiber connectivity. Several years ago, we had a fiber cut like this in Middle East, in the Red Sea particularly, that cut off most of India's subcontinent, and they came with a solution that not all their fiber connectivity will be through the undersea cable. Some of them will be through terrestrial connectivity, and this is something we have to explore too. There has been a proposition of having a land terrestrial optical fiber to Europe, from Nigeria through the north of Nigeria, through the Sahara Desert to Europe. But this we need to start talking about again. Then the other means of connectivity. Nigeria has its own Nicomsat, which beam is fully beaming on Nigeria. We need to explore these as well. We need to patronize what is Nigeria. And part of the thing we're talking about is that a lot more of the content which we are always going overseas to look into, we need to have them localized. If these contents are localized, the likes of Google, Microsoft Azure platforms and all those stuff are localized in Nigeria, then the effect of these fiber cuts will not be so much on us.
While the productivity and financial losses due to the outage may be unquantifiable at the moment, the silver lining may be that it lays bare the importance of building a more robust internet infrastructure on the African continent.